manifestos is something that neither political parties nor voters often take very seriously. It's a list of promises that parties make. In fact, over the last few major elections, manifestos have become something of a routine, just put out perfunctorily before campaigning begins. Most of the promises are left to the big speeches. But this election manifesto has sparked off something much bigger. I'm talking about the BJP's manifesto for the upcoming state elections in Bihar. It was presented by the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman today. And number one on top of the list of promises was that when a COVID-19 vaccine is certified by the central government, it will be distributed free to everyone in Bihar if the BJP comes to power. Now, as you can imagine, this became quite controversial. It sparked off outrage, debate. Opposition parties are saying that it's, asking for votes for a vaccine, which should be everybody's right. But that's not just it. By the end of the evening, you've had the states of Tamil Nadu and Madhya Pradesh also say that they will give vaccines free to all the people in their states. Can other states then be left out? That's really the big story. Before we get on to the discussion, let's play out for you what the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said today while making the announcement.
हमारे देश में वैक्सीन का प्रोडक्शन उस लेवल पर होगा जिससे जो हम इधर प्रॉमिस कर रहे हैं बिहार में हर एक के लिए मुफ्त में वैक्सीन मिल जाएगा, वो हमारी पहला संकल्प पत्र के प्रॉमिस है। भरोसा के साथ बिहार की जनता को हम आश्वासन दिलाना चाहते हैं कि वैक्सीन फ्री में आप सबको मिलेगा।
All right, Yashwant, Deshmukh, Neerja, Chowdhury, Rasheed, Kidwai, S.Y. Qureishi joining us on the big debate. Welcome to all of you and thank you for speaking with us. Mr. Kidwai, let me get your views first. Is the announcement of a free vaccine a game changer of any sorts as far as the election is concerned?
Tamanna, first of all, it's a wide ball. This is not just done. You see, in Westminster model, things work on a propriety. Everything is not legal or illegal. I think if Election Commission really, takes a view, there is a case to countermand Bihar elections, because remember, we are in the midst of pandemic, and this kind of plan, this kind of promise, it's to say it's unethical and all is not, would not suffice. It calls for some action, and I think counterbanding election is one of the possibility, because you cannot. There is a distinction between a political party, government of India, and the Indian state. This pandemic and distribution of vaccine belongs to the domain of Indian state. It cannot be made, our voters would get this. This is not just done. Any political party doing it is basically violating the spirit of, elections.
I'm going to ask that question to Dr. Qureishi. Dr. Qureishi, is this a violation of elections? I mean, the counter argument that has come about is that health is a state subject. The center will subsidize the vaccine and give it to health to state governments. If there is a BJP-led state government or an NDA state government, then they will give it for free. Other states are also free too. There's so many promises made in an election manifesto. Do you see this as a violation in these unusual times and in the context of coronavirus?
Basically, there are two issues involved. One is the manifesto, the propriety of manifesto, the promises made in the manifesto, which has been debated even in the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court says that the manifesto have to make responsible promises. And if you do, action will be taken. And in fact, there were two cases in history, both in Tamil Nadu, ADMK and DMK. They were both asked to explain why they made promises, and at least one of them apologized, the other took the corrective action. So one is the promises, the quality of promises in the manifesto. Second is the model code of conduct. Now, I would like to remind you that model code of conduct is not a law. It is, its foundation is totally ethical. It was a creation of political parties themselves to follow a discipline, and the spirit was that they will keep the election free, fair, and the way they should be and healthy. So, therefore, legally we may not fault it, because it is you can promise the moon in the manifesto, they promised the moon in the manifesto. The other is whether ethically it was desirable. That is what the question is now. That it is seducing the voter. Number one, the vaccine surely is not coming in the next 1 week. In fact, when Election Commission decides the cases of these kind of promises, we also have to see the timing. Now, once it happened that there was a proposal from Punjab that they want to increase the MSP for the agriculture produce. Immediately, we suspected the timing and we said, please show us over the last 10 years, what is the month and date on which you made these promises. This proposal came in February, but they have been doing it in April and May. So 3 months ahead, they decided to announce the MSP. We said nothing doing. If something can wait, it must wait. Surely this promise could have waited a week, 10 days. And thirdly, finally, hopefully the vaccine will be developed. Now, what moral right will the government have if it gives it free to Bihar as per promise, and the rest of the country has to pay for it? So now these are issues which should have been thought deeply, and ethical question, as Mr. Kidwai rightly pointed out, cannot be brushed under the carpet, because in fact in the public mind, model code of conduct is considered as a moral code of conduct. Lots of people by mistake call it a moral code of conduct because that is the force they see behind this MCC. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, Yashwant, I want to understand why politically, as a strategy, the vaccine was pulled into all of this. Strangely enough, in the Bihar election battle so far, the pandemic has not been the major issue. It has been about unemployment, and that's what has been pushed by the Mahagathbandhan as well. Tejasvi Yadav has promised 10 lakh jobs. The BJP today promised 19 lakh jobs in its manifesto. If you contrast it with the US elections, which is all about the pandemic. So why the idea of putting in the COVID-19 vaccine for free? And has that sort of become diluted after 2 state governments have said even we'll give it for free? One will only assume that it's very likely others will also give it for free. No one will pay for the vaccine.
Well, Tamanna, it's first of all, as per me, in my personal opinion, it was absolutely unethical, because I don't see this as a campaign point. I see this particular aspect as a kind of blackmail to an extent. Because come to think of the bottom of the pyramid, the poorest of the poor in Bihar, who might, the way it is going to spin out, and the way, if I was the bottom of the pyramid and poorest of the poor, the message I would get is that if I don't vote for this party, I might be asked to pay for it. That's the way I would look at it. And I don't want to die out of this virus, this pandemic. And if I want to live, have that vaccine, and I am not in a position to pay for it, then I should rather vote for it. This is nothing but short of a kind of emotional blackmail. It's unethical, it's wrong, and no way one can justify it by saying that health is a state matter. Of course, everybody knows health is a state matter. What's the big deal? But is the vaccine a state matter? Is this pandemic itself a state matter? Is this situation, this crisis, a state matter? If it was a state matter, why was central government devising all those lockdown plans and opening up plans and everything in between? So obviously, this nature of crisis is not a state matter. Vaccine, the earlier it comes, is better for every Indian, and we all know for sure that it has to be provided to every Indian, and there has to be a policy in place for that. It cannot be an electoral issue. It cannot be, practiced in a way that people who are going into election cycle, they would be promised to have a free vaccine as per the election cycle. Is this the message that is being given? So obviously, this is shameful. I have no other words to say. But why? The question that you asked me, why now? Obviously, in our tracker, we have seen that the COVID crisis as an election issue is no more in Bihar. in our daily tracker, when the moment we started reporting that the unemployment, and particularly more so because of the reverse migration of labor class, and that is creating or amplifying the issue of unemployment, and that is becoming a major issue. Obviously, the numbers right now are becoming uncomfortable for the ruling coalition over there. They still have a lead. I'm not saying that they do not have a lead, but that kind of a one-way traffic, because of all these issues, it is no more there. And all they have now, nothing but the Prime Minister and his popularity to pull them out of this mess. So just to dilute that thing, they've come up with this kind of manifesto and asking or promising something which should not have been done. It has certainly left a very bitter taste in the mouth of everybody who is watching. It's not the way, it should not have been done the way it is done.
Neerja, do you think it's backfired in a sense, especially because, look at it practically. My question is beyond an election promise, because like I said, no one takes the election promises by themselves very seriously. But once you say that one state will have free vaccines, and then a second state says we will give it for free, and then a third says we will give it for free, which state government is now going to not give a vaccine for free? And some would argue that that's the way it should be. Those who can should pay for it, but the state by itself should offer this very, very essential treatment for free.
Are you asking me? Are you asking me?
Yes, Neerja, that's for you.
Yeah, okay. There are several, you are pointing to an issue of competitive populism. If you're giving it for one state, the other states say we will bear the burden and we will also do it. It's like saying, one state does MSP, the other state say we will go one better, one better, one better. That has its own place in our politics. But on choosing an issue like a vaccine, we say in every election, this has touched a new low. It's become like a takya kalam in every election for commentators to say that. But I would say really, truly, this time, this is a really new low. Because what the central government and the finance minister of India, that is saying, that implicit in that message is, if you vote for our party, you will get the vaccine free. In other words, if you don't vote for our party, you may not, and our party does not come to power, you may not get your vaccine free. In other words, you're linking my right to health, which is all right, but you're linking my right to life, which is a fundamental basic right, to my voting in a particular way for a particular party. And the ruling party at the center is giving this message to the voters in Bihar. And Nirmala Sitharaman could have said, 3, 4, 5 states she could have singled out. No, she singled out only one, Bihar. So it's a very, I think the fig leaves are now going. They have been going for a long time. But today, this is a real disappointment in the way the BJP has projected, its message. And it also shows politically, if you look at it, it shows a sense of desperation to be able to come down to this level in terms of appealing to the voter.
No, but so the real question is, as Dr. Qureishi already said, that this might not be an illegal issue, more of an unethical issue, and it can be argued whichever what way. Rasheed Kidwai, my question is for you. Do you think this will be a game changer of any sorts, where employment has been the key issue? Some are saying that the gap is narrowing. So will free COVID vaccine make a dent either way, or could it backfire?
No, I don't think it will backfire. I think it's a very important issue because, COVID-19 has affected everyone, every individual, directly, indirectly, to circumstances, etc. So this is a very potent thing. I think among other things, it's not about who will win. I don't even think this is a election lollipop. It is basically a litmus test for election commission I know that election commissioners, with due respect to Mr. Qureishi, when when they retire, they talk something different. When they are in office, that is their test. What is election commission going to do? It is going to be a just mute spectator. Then we might as well not have election, because the state and the central government, the country's finance minister, they can always come up with something that opposition cannot match. Look at this situation. What can opposition do? It can only see they are not in power. They're not in centers. They don't have that kind of money. Some individual government can say that, but that would not suffice. So what I'm saying is, this is a very important thing about the third umpire, about neutrality, about all these things are involved. What happens on November 10 is insignificant. If election commission cannot do it, then it should not talk about moral code of conduct, etc.
Okay, Dr. Qureishi just wants to respond to that. Dr. Qureishi, you said earlier this is merely an ethical issue. There is nothing that can be done by the EC about it. Do you think that there is no respite there?
No, first of all, let me respond to what Mr. Kidwai said about what election commissioners say when in office and when outside the office. I was in office for 6 years, and Mr. Kidwai was a journalist, active journalist as he is now. Give me one instance of something which I should have done and I did not do. We even charge sheeted 3 ministers, including the law minister of the land, who had issued my appointment letter. So, that was the quality of our judgment. So, this is a kind of a generalization, saying something in office, saying something out of office. There's a kind of a personal insinuation, which is totally objectionable and rejected. Otherwise, you show me you're a person who does a lot of research. You give me one instance which I should not have done when I was there, and I'm speaking a different language now. So that is the other part of it. Now, as I have always held that the model code has a moral basis, and legally there is no law. It cannot be enforced through the code of law. In fact, there used to be a proposal every now and then that we should be given statutory backing, which was a very deceptive suggestion. In the public mind, statutory backing will imply that you're going to make it stronger. The idea was to take away our teeth, because the model code of conduct is discretionary for the political party, and it leaves a lot of discretion for the election commission to take action, and we take a spot decision. The moment it becomes law, it goes out of the jurisdiction of election commission. It will be decided by the court of law, and it will take 3 years, 5 years, 10 years to decide. As one journalist, a friend of Mr. Kidwai said that it will be like Sachin Tendulkar, was he LBW or not, you will get to know after 10 years. So the fact that model code is ethical and it has to be decided on the spot is like a firefighter, and who was responsible for the violation and what was the background, that's a matter of detail. So what we do is, let me also make it clear that what we do is, if there is nothing in the model code which is also somewhere not a part of the law, which was the reason why Punjab High Court first and the Supreme Court decided that model code, although it is not law, but it is not illegal, because it is not in conflict and contradiction of any law. And what we do is, if it is a violation of law, we file an FIR, the impact of which we will see after 10 years. And whereas under the model code, we give a notice to a political party that we want your reply by 4 p.m. tomorrow.
I get your point. I get your point, Dr. Qureishi. Yeah. I get your point. You'll have to first determine whether this is a violation of law, and then it will take its own, sweet time in the legal process. Meanwhile, the horse is sort of bolted the stable as far as an election promise is concerned. But Mr. Deshmukh, let me come back to the point of whether it will actually show any fruition, and where do you think that this election is headed? This is sort of, Rasheed Kidwai called it a wide. You can also say it's a googly, because suddenly from somewhere COVID has become the focus of this election, which it wasn't so far. And that itself is ironical. The biggest health crisis of our times was not an election issue at all. Now, considering that you have said one state will get it free, a couple of other states have said it'll get it free, will it just follow that other states will also fall in line? Because at the end of the day, it's a decision, presumably, that the state government makes. It will get subsidized vaccines, and then it will decide to subsidize it further and give it free to those who need it.
It's not a question of falling in line. It's not a question of falling in line at all. I guess, and I truly believe that every state government in India would have done the same thing. It would have been there like that. With this level of crisis, there is no other way but to make available the vaccine to each and every individual just free of cost. Yes, you might ask those who can afford, just the way the Prime Minister asked those who could afford to give away the subsidy on LPG. Similarly, they could ask those who can afford to go to the private clinic and get it done whenever, as and when vaccine comes in for a price tag. But, the thing is that this entire proposition was immoral to the core. The way it was done, it was said, was immoral. I understand very well that it might not be illegal, and that's perfectly, I can take this point from Dr. Qureishi. What I understand it might not be illegal, but it is certainly wrong the way it has been said. Second thing is, will or will it not have any impact on the elections? It will. This could either backfire or could help both ways. You see, the way I look at the things in Bihar, even after the problems and the anti-incumbency sentiment and everything, we have seen reports, and the data also suggests that the females are overwhelmingly still supporting Nitish Kumar government for various reasons, including prohibition. Even though it is a huge failure, we all know that, but still, there are reports that females are still voting for Nitish Kumar. And this particular aspect of vaccine could also something that can be taken into that constituency further. Because come to think of it, mothers are worried about their kids. Wives are worried about their husbands. The anxiety of females in a household regarding the well-being of their family members on health issue is much more.
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if women are more worried about health issues and getting coronavirus than men. Maybe, but I get your point, Yashwant, that this could play into the women voter appeal that Nitish Kumar has. At the end of the day, the question still remains: can you say vaccine for votes? And that is one tricky terrain that the BJP has stepped into. We'll have to wait and see how it pans out. One thing is for sure, it has started off a chain reaction of more and more states that will now say that they will offer the vaccine for free for those who absolutely need it, which is how it should be. There was a report today of the Indian government preparing to spend up to $7 billion on the vaccine to vaccinate everybody, and the cost calculation is about $6 to $7 per Indian, including 2 doses and infrastructure costs. And that really is the figure to keep an eye on. I want to thank all of you for joining us on The Big Story this evening.